Thank you for listening to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast, available on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, and Stitcher. Also, please follow Matt's Movie Reviews on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Reddit, Instagram, and MeWe. And of course, be sure to visit mattsmoviereviews.net for the latest reviews, top 10 lists, and more. Now, on to the show.
You know we're doing tomorrow, right? Hunting. I already gave you the spiel about deer and how they're skittish and all. I never spoke to you about the snakes. And I didn't drive all the way out here for you to end up bitten by one. People say that snakes hibernate in the winter. Well, that's a load of horse shit. They're out here. They're scarce, but they're out here. And if you don't step where I step, you just might get bitten by one. Getting bitten by one, I'm gonna have to drive you all the way back into town to see a doctor. Ain't no doctor out here. You understand?
Hello and welcome to the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast. I am your host, Matthew Pejkovic, and this is episode number 358. Out now in select theaters across the US is Whitetail, a southern gothic thriller in which a broken family consisting of a father, a son, and an uncle embark on a hunting trip only to stumble across a dying man grasping onto a bag full of cash. What follows is an intense and violent thriller set in Texas, in which temptation, manhood, and the nature of evil takes center stage. And joining me now on the Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is a writer and director of Whitetail, Derek Presley. Derek, I thank you very much for joining me today.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So as per usual, in my watching movies and interviewing directors, I like to do a bit of a deep dive into their filmography. Interesting thing about your work prior to Whitetail, in your shorts and the feature that you've done so far, a lot of it is based kind of like in sci-fi or fantastical kind of elements. When I watch Whitetail, this is very much a story that's much more grounded. Is that something that's intentional in your part? Did you want to make a film different to the things that you did beforehand, or is it just kind of like an organic nature of you being a creative person that you just like to delve into different stories and different environments?
That's a good question. Yes, it's a little bit of both, I think. And the reason is that when I was growing up as a teenager and I got into my early 20s, I kind of discovered the filmmakers that had a little more surreal take on things. Terry Gilliam and Jean-Pierre Jeunet, and I've discovered Federico Fellini, and I became quite obsessed with them and became a fan. And it kind of, in a way, I wasn't letting myself be, as you put it, to have it organically. It was I was forcing myself. I really wanted to do those types of films.
Yep.
And I did love them, and I still do. I still very much love them. But it was something where it was definitely premeditated as far as like, okay, I'm going to write this script. It's going to be like this. It's a sci-fi film. It's a fantasy film. My short films as well, and pretty anything I take on, music videos too. I would actually shoot those in weird ways, and I would do the commercials if I could, that kind of stuff. And then when I got a little older, then it did actually kind of happen organically, where I was just a little bit tired and hadn't had the success that I think I wanted with those type of movies, and I also just felt like they were lacking with the acting, with the actors and just kind of being grounded in reality. So I kind of went back to my past, and that's where Whitetail came from, was being a little bit more true to who I am, living in Texas and using the environments. And so I wrote a story around that. That's really how we got there. So
the initial premise of Whitetail is based upon this hunting trip. You just said yourself you went back into the past. Was hunting something that you partook when you were younger? Did you do it as well with family members as a sort of kind of like a rite of passage, as a form of bonding with other members of your family? Is that something you did when you were younger? And is that something that really kind of you saw as a really good way to kind of set this thriller in upon that world and upon this kind of very cultural thing that's very to someone who lives in Texas?
Yes. The short answer is yes. I did go hunting, but I have not been hunting since I was a young man. And the people I went hunting with, for the most part, all of them have passed away. These are people from my past family members. So it was a time that's it's like I've had two lives. And so I don't remember, I would think I was probably 11 was the last time I went hunting. And I'm 39, sorry. So it's something that I was looking at from a lot of pictures and memories when I was younger, and then just kind of I retained like the smell. I could smell all of that stuff from where we hunted at, which was where we were originally going to shoot at in Coleman, Texas. It's this tiny little town in Texas, and we had a few hundred acres out there. We had a little camper. And it was just like that one. It was real dirty, had the orange stripe. It looked just like the one we found. Jason Starn found that camper, did a great job, or Austin Williams. And the house was very similar too, So we basically, it was something that I did, and I did it with my biological father. I did it with my brother, my uncles, and all these people. And it was definitely a rite of passage then. But I went away from that. I'm a total city boy. You wouldn't think, if you could see me, you wouldn't think that, but I am. I'm a total city guy. And I thought it'd be great to explore my past with that. And even down to the way that in the movie, when they actually take off their vests, that was things that my father wouldn't want us to have vests. Men to do. And I always thought that was very silly of him. But so I took all of those things, and then I just added obviously the other element to it, which was the whole story of the bank robbers to that.
The interesting thing about this family, the father, the uncle, the son, it's kind of like almost looking at a spectrum of manhood. They all kind of represent different types of kind of like masculinity or sensitivity, etc. These archetypes that you're dealing with, are they representative of the people that in your family that you were hunting with? Did you use inspiration from them to kind of form the characters that we see on screen?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. There are two characters in the movie that are actually the same person in my real life that has split personality disorder. And so the person would be either extremely fun, but he's very dangerous, or he could be just really disconnected and kind of mean. And so it was basically that, and they became kind of in a weird way the protagonist and the antagonist, so which I think is kind of a mirrored real life. That's kind of what happened anyways. So that was that. And the uncle is definitely somebody based on somebody that I know. And Donnie is kind of a representation of a few different people that I knew from my past. So put together. One.
Interesting watching it is that the character of Donnie, played by Dash Milrose, is autistic. And that's really interesting to me because my son's autistic. So whenever I see, representation of that on screen, I kind of like perk up a little bit and watch it. And I really appreciate it, and I really respect what you've done with that character in your film. I think you really hit the ball out the park in regards to the portrayal of someone on the spectrum in that way. Having a character with autism, going back to the question beforehand, is that something that's representative of people that you knew in your life as well? And did you want to make sure that, there's been lots of talk, which I'm not really a fan of. I'm not a big fan of people when they say the only people who can play people on the spectrum are people on the spectrum. I'm not a huge fan of that. I think a character is a character, and you just have to respect where the character comes from, and that's okay with me. When it comes to representing a character with autism in the film, is that also inspired by people that you knew in your real life, and did you make sure that because of that, the representation on the screen of that was as accurate as you could portray? Because, like I said, it was the things that you touched on that, especially in regards to not being able to look people in the eyes is just, my son's the same kind of way, you know. I really appreciated that.
Oh, well, I thank you for seeing that, and that is definitely three people. That one was a friend of mine whose son. Oh, actually, no, I'm so sorry. It was his nephew. Yeah, it was his nephew. It was a friend of mine, and his nephew would not look at anybody in the face, and he was on the spectrum. Highly intelligent.
Yes.
Highly intelligent, you know, and but you just got, and then I didn't know it at the time, you know, and then we talked about it. And I have two nephews that are autistic. Now they are, I don't know how to say it the right way, but they're more on the spectrum, I guess. You know,
yeah, this is like different levels. So like my son would be like lower end, but some people could be higher end. That's where it really kind of, there's a withdrawal from kind of like, you know, I know some people who have autism that don't talk at all. Like there's, you have to call it non-verbal autism. So it's like, there's very degrees of it. Yeah.
Okay. So that makes, yeah. So they would be more on that. And they were definitely in my mind as well, doing that, kind of thinking of where, you know, how would they handle that situation? You know, and then of course, just the fact that it's, you know, to be completely honest, it was kind of their, you know, innocence. I don't want to give it away, but I mean, you know, it's
yes.
The innocent one is kind of my point of that is that innocence prevails. So sometimes, you know.
Yes. It's interesting, the spectrum as well is also in the villains as well. And there's a line that the character of Tom Mann has in the movie, which is in the trailer as well, talking about snakes. And in many ways, the snakes in the movie are representative of the villains in the film. They stumble upon vipers of a different sort while out there. And what's interesting about these villains is, although they're really despicable, they're really evil, there's shades of grey to them as well. They're not really stock in the way that you represent them. They are no way sympathetic at all, but there is a semblance of humanity within them as well. How important was that to kind of bring that across in these very much evil characters, but evil characters that have humanity in there? There's touches of things in there that we can kind of pinpoint, and we can maybe in certain ways kind of find some empathy with as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that would, to me, if it didn't come off that way, then it was a failure, the whole movie, because you only have 6 people in the movie. You have, and you know, and it's a pretty long movie for that, and to have one person that is just the quintessential antagonist, who's the bad guy, quote unquote, would be, I think, really not. Yeah, wouldn't serve the film at all in any way. Every character needed to have some sort of human trait that you can kind of try to connect with. I think maybe Billy Blair's character Jesse is the least, the one that's like the ultimate least, you know.
Yes.
One you can connect with, but certainly with Jason Douglas, who played Davey, and his, you know, that was very important for me that we had, and we cut a lot of stuff out. To be honest, we had a whole scene that justified his, you know, his goal of the money a little bit more, but also to leave it open because we didn't want people to immediately. I didn't want to hit on the head. We kind of let you think, you know, well, maybe the guy's a lion, and of course we did some things to do that. And Jason Coviello with Ricky is really kind of the one that I think it was not necessarily most important, but it was definitely the most obvious, where his goal, he doesn't care about the money, he doesn't care about anything. He wants to find his brother, and that's all what he wants to find. And he just happens to be a psychopath.
Yes.
So when he gets to the money, you know, I always say, had he made it back, you know, he probably would have left the money with his dead brother, and he would have just got in the car and drove off to the next, you know, bar. It was very important for that, all of those things to happen. And I think that the actors, you know, in my opinion, they did fantastic with those 3. They just made you really think about it. And Jesse, Billy Blair, so likable, you know, that he's the kind, I always said he's the kind of guy that you meet at a bar or a restaurant, and you have a few drinks with him or whatever, and you go, man, this guy's really nice, you know? And then you get to know him a little too much, and you go, oh man, I got to get away from this guy. he's really not the good guy, you know. I think, you know, he's like that. And I think that we wrote to help that. It's funny because I wrote bios. I wrote some short stories for the characters.
Okay.
I changed the prose up, and I changed one of them was present tense, and it was a short story, like 10 pages long, real fun. That was for Jesse's character until the bank robbery they did. And it was just for fun and to get him, to get Billy Blair into it more. I did a obituary style for Tom Mann, where it was like he had died. Tom Mann, it's kind of just to fill in their gaps because we don't talk about a lot of it in the movie. Jason was the one actor who said, I don't want to really see that. I want to do my own thing. And I said, great. And it was, he did. Jason Douglas, that is. I'm sorry. There's two Jasons. Jason Douglas is the big dude, played Davey.
Yes.
And he said he didn't want to see it. But Coviello and I worked together very closely for months before we shot this on his character. And he added so many great things, so many personal things. It's that when he came time to doing the movie, for me at least, I was like, I really like him, even though he's a really bad guy. And he's but I really like him because he's added all these personal things. I thought it was really good.
The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by 80s Tees. 80s Tees is an online retailer of licensed t-shirts and pop culture gear from your favorite movies, TV shows, cartoons, video games, comic books, and musicians. Celebrate your inner 80s nerd and click on the link in the show notes below to get the raddest retro t-shirts delivered to your door. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is brought to you by Loot Crate. Founded in 2012, Loot Crate is the worldwide leader in fan subscription boxes. Loot Crate partners with industry leaders in entertainment, gaming, sports, and pop culture to deliver monthly themed crates, produce interactive experiences in digital content, and film original video productions. No matter what you geek out about, Loot Crate has a subscription box for you. To get your very own exclusive collectibles, apparel, and gear delivered to your door, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. The Matt's Movie Reviews podcast is also brought to you by Vudu. Watch the latest movies and TV shows anytime, anywhere. No subscriptions, no contract. Enjoy stunning quality in up to 4K ultra high definition at home and download and watch on your mobile device as well. To rent and buy from over 100,000 titles or watch thousands of movies free with Vudu Movies on us, be sure to click on the link in the show notes below. Now, back to the show. So Jason, as Ricky, has a really interesting monologue in the film in regards to his upbringing. And I think something that's really touched on in your movie is nature versus nurture. Is that a prevalent thing that you really had in your movie? And is that something you really wanted to base a lot of these kind of things that's going on about? Because we're talking about essentially in the film two different families clashing together at the same time. And I think the whole things about their upbringing, who they are as men, what they were as children growing up, those are really kind of distinct themes in your film.
Yes, especially with Coviello in that moment there, as well as, it goes back to Tom talking about the snakes and everything. I'm not going to hide the fact that I'm a bit of a pessimist. I'm not going to lie, but trying to be as optimistic as one can. It kind of goes back to earlier where I said kids are really strong. I have an 8-year-old kid, and he is just I wouldn't be worried about him. In a situation. I mean, obviously I would, but I know children tend to bounce when you drop them.
Yes.
And they're a lot more durable than we give them credit for. I think that as adults we forget, what we could deal with, and that was really one of the things where it was showing both sides. You have Tom Zembrod, who plays Tom Mann and did a fantastic job, and he plays the cold, disconnected father, and the kid has already lost his mother. And then you have the flip side that you have two great parents that are brought up these two hooligans, these two guys who are now, thieves and murderers. And it just, it's not really, for me anyways, you don't always turn out great because your parents were great. And you don't always turn out so horrible because your father was a jerk or bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes you turn out pretty good,
Yeah.
And that was really where it started from, was just saying that, honestly, nobody knows everything. That's kind of what I was saying with that. So you can't really say that somebody's going to grow up to be a frail person because their father or mother were meek or anything. And you can't say the opposite. You can't say because they grew up with fantastic human beings as parents that they're going to turn out great. Look at Ted Bundy. Supposedly he had great parents, and he's a serial killer. So
I mean, everyone at the end of the day goes on their own journey, their own experiences formed them. So that's just how it is.
Yeah.
Looking at your cast, we talked about Tom Zembrod as Tom Mann, Ted Ferguson as Daryl Winks. It's interesting. A lot of the people in your movie you've worked with before several times. I mean, Ted Ferguson, I think bar one project of yours, he's pretty much been in everything that you've put on film. Are you developing a trope of actors now? Do you feel like you have a cast of actors that you can rely on for your films? Are you putting together a kind of like a Derek Presley kind of trope of actors that you can rely on, that you can call upon to play the characters in your film? Is that where you feel like you're going with having Ted and Tom and other people? Billy Blair, for example, is in your later projects as well. Do you find that having all of them together, you create kind of like a community that you can rely on and that you perhaps even write characters for when you're writing new scripts?
Yes, I mean, for sure. These guys I've been with for a long time. So a lot of them before Whitetail. Tom Zembrod and Ted Ferguson I've worked with for years ago, my first short film projects, both of them. And they're kind of like, I think they were in the same, maybe not Ted as much because Ted does more variety of things, but Tom Zembrod is really good at sinister, dark, creepy characters. He's good at wacky, zany characters he plays in these really cool horror films, the cult movies, people love. And I did all the fantasy sci-fi things. And I think we were all in the same boat where I basically, Tom was one of the first people I called up and I said, I'm doing this script. It's not like the stuff we kind of worked on together in the past. And I'm thinking of you as the dad, but I don't want you to go over the top and crazy. And I don't, it's not a horror film. It's something kind of different. And he read it and, he enjoyed it and everything. But I think he was a little nervous because he was doing something he hadn't done before. Or if he hadn't the movies. He's done some other stuff since then. It's been really good. I was real impressed with it. Was low-key, kind of films and explored him a little bit more, just as, his character as opposed to, bright, shiny things like I had made with him or set design or something. And I feel like we've got a good group of people here, but that, if we have a film that works, if we have a script that works for them. Yeah. And I have absolutely written. The next film that we shot was a film called Redstone, which is coming out in November. And I wrote a role just for Billy Blair, and I have another role for Jason Douglas in that one. And yeah, I love those guys. They're great. They did something very different. And I've worked with them before, and I think it was just it was very fun, and it was really good stuff. So I hope to keep working with all of them in different varieties, different films, different projects. And we've got something cooking right now. We're shooting pretty soon with Billy Blair in the lead.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Very interested to see what lead character is going to play. He's so effective. I think his look is just so distinctive as well. When he first enters the screen, actually I was watching the film and my wife came into the room as I watched it. And when Billy first is introduced, my wife just said, "Oh, he doesn't look very good, does he?" Because he's all bloodied up and stuff. And I was like, "Yeah, that's who he is." And I can't wait to see what he's going to do with a lead role. It's going to be very interesting. This film, Whitetail, shot in 12 days back in 2019. Mm-hmm. It's released now in select theaters, and we're looking at home entertainment release later down the line. What's interesting about this movie, Whitetail, is that it's going to be the first of a few films that's going to come out through your own studio, essentially, Muscular Puppy Films. And following from that, you already got films in the can, and I think you're wrapping up another movie now in Redstone and Boone as well. Your idea to put together Muscular Puppy along, I think it's a couple of your producers and your cinematographer as well. Where did that kind of come about to kind of put your own shingle together that you can create your own movies? And also, the filming, this was pre-COVID, but the other films were during COVID. We were filming as well. How much of that did that kind of create problems in regards to making films together, or did having that happen, did that kind of like give you the chance in your partners to kind of step back and look at what you're doing and give the time for these kind of idea to flourish and come up with ideas that now that everything is slowly kind of getting back to normal, you can finally unleash all this stuff you've been working on over the last few years and put it out there to the world?
Yeah, the first part of that about Muscular Puppy was we ended up, I'd written that script and I took it to Garrett Schwint first. He was the cinematographer on it. And I'd seen his reel and I knew him from other people, and I worked with him briefly. And I just basically said, look, I only need 30 grand to make it, 20 maybe. We were going to do it very low budget and handheld and just go in the sticks, and as they say, and just shoot this movie and fly on the wall type stuff. And I went to him and he introduced me to Alex Blackman essentially, and Alex Blackman and him had produced some films before. And Alex just said, he read the script. I was going to him for a small portion of the money, and he said, I'll just give you more than that and get it up to what we really think we need, and he'll fully finance it. And we brought in a couple other people. And that was in the February of 2019. And what happened was that it kind of fell into, then from there, I got Austin Williams with Tom Zimbrod. They had worked together. Austin Williams is a filmmaker here in Dallas-Fort Worth and has done a lot of great things. And Austin and I hit it off. And we had 9 months, until the winter here in Texas. And you don't hunt deer except in the winter. And the whole film would have changed, and the color scheme, everything that Garrett and I had worked on would have changed. So we said, we got to wait until winter. We're going to film in November. And then a very big key to the puzzle came in the form of Jason Starn. And Jason Starn and I met sometime in July. He'd color corrected a feature that I did in the past. And I met up with him and I said, hey, I want to get going on this, and I want to make sure I get all my post team in first. And he said, I really kind of want to take a stab at producing. And I was like, you want to produce? And he said, yeah. And he said, I have this kid actor named Dash Melrose. I think he's really good. And I had spent 2 months casting already, and I already picked it down to two kids. And I said kindly, thank you, but no thank you. I'd love for you to come on board and help us produce, but I don't want to look at anybody else. I've got my mind made up. He twisted my arm and I saw Dash, and it was it. I didn't even, that's the truth. Like during the middle of his reading, I was like, yeah, okay, that's it. That's the guy. He's awesome. And while we were filming, I think we all just enjoyed it so much, and we enjoyed working together, and we really thought we had something kind of, nice. We were obviously going for film festivals. This is a film festival type of movie, and this is pre-COVID. We didn't know what was about to happen. Nobody did.
Yes, no one did know.
We didn't know we're on the verge of this, sci-fi film we're all living in now. And I think it was Garrett Schwinn who said, well, we should just start our own company. We got everything made. Garrett has quite a bit of equipment. Jason is a post-production genius. That's what the man does. He's right now, as I'm doing this interview, he's back in Los Angeles working for Disney, setting up their servers and their post-production stuff for their films. He does virtual editing, works with a company called Synesys, and he can do anything. And then of course, you got Alex and myself bringing up the rest of it, and let's form it. So we did, and then almost immediately, we sent the first cut of Whitetail to Alex. He loved it. He said, let's do another one, but let's up the budget. And we went to some other investors and got some money together. And we were in pre-pro for Redstone in February of 2020. And it was to be our second film for Muscular Puppy. And then all of a sudden, the news reports started coming in. We already had production offices in Fort Worth. We were going to shoot in Fort Worth. Mm-hmm. And we had production offices. And then the news reports started filing in, and then we went into lockdown. And going back to what you'd said about where we get the time, we actually didn't have time to think about it. We actually didn't. We went into overdrive. And so during the course of lockdown, I pretty much lived in the office as did the other guys. And we were Zoom meetings. We were talking to SAG. We were talking to actors. We were talking to the crew, all Zooms. We were getting everything ready to go because we wanted to shoot in the summer, right when the lockdown lifted. And we were miraculously, we were able to, and I'm pretty sure, maybe I'm incorrect on this, but I feel like we were the first state SAG, the first film SAG greenlit, because we were shooting 3 days after the lockdown ended.
Well, I read that as well in a couple of different publications, so I think you might be correct in that. Yeah.
I mean, it was crazy, and then we started shooting. We didn't have any COVID cases. We moved the production to a very small town. Called Corsicana that had 8 cases. Fort Worth, I think, had 20-something thousand at the time. And so we did all that stuff, and then we started collaborating with Neil McDonough, who was an actor, and he was in Redstone, and that kind of snowballed into Boone. He wanted to do another kind of version, another thing, and so we shot Boone, and just this last January, and so we have these three films. And I think that because of COVID, we missed some festivals with Whitetail, so we're trying to get it out there and just make let as many people see it as they can. And Redstone is signed with Cinedigm now, or I don't know who it is. I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. I don't really care. So, but it's with somebody. It's gonna be coming out in November, and Boone right now is we're wrapped up, has a bow on it, and we're days away from signing with another distributor for Boone, and that'll be coming out next year. So,
well, this is very exciting days for you, I think, because you got Whitetail out now, Redstone end of the year, Boone I imagine will be early next year. I mean, 3 of your films they worked on the last few years, all coming out in succession, one after the other, really putting Muscular Puppy out there as a kind of like a studio that a lot of people, especially I imagine in Texas, will be looking at as kind of like a forebearer of how to do filmmaking post-COVID. And I'm really looking forward to seeing Redstone and Boone, because Neil McDonough is one of my favorite actors. I love anything that he's in, I watch. I mean, and I like reading his interviews. He's the kind of guy, like, him, of course, much more personally, having worked with such, but from what I've read of him, he's the kind of guy that sounds like a really man's man. He's got really good kind of like foundations to him as well. And I really like that about him as well. And I can't wait to see what he does with you in your movies. And before everyone gets to see that, I would suggest everyone, when you get the chance, check out Whitetail. So it's right now in select theaters in the States. You can actually go to Whitetail Film on Instagram, and that's a really cool Instagram page because the show is kind of like showings and on all sorts of stuff there as well. And Derek, I imagine we're looking at kind of like home entertainment DVD style releases later in the year as well in regards to Whitetail.
Yes, sir. Yeah, it'll be actually, we do have our distributor. It'll be distributed DVD, Blu-ray, streaming on demand, all that in October. So awesome. We're trying to show it some here before then. And we could do a whole other show, to be honest with you, on the COVID question about shooting during COVID, because it was crazy. 2 films, and that was nuts. So
I imagine we'll be. I've talked to a few different indie filmmakers about that experience of shooting like in COVID, and it's very stressful, very kind of times, and just really thinking on your feet. I imagine just doing that type of filmmaking in that type of environment. So, and I think I can't wait to see what Boone and Redstone looks like, because Whitetail, I really dug this film. I really did. And I just want to say congratulations to you with the movie. And I can't wait for everyone to see it. So people in the US, make sure to check out the Instagram page. That is Whitetail Film, to make sure you see what showings there are. The rest of us around the world, we can't wait to see it in October when it comes out DVD and Blu-ray and everything else as well, digital, I imagine. And because it is a film to be watched. And I think, Derek, I really think you're going to put your name out there as a filmmaker to watch too. And I really can't wait. Hopefully in the future, you and I could talk again about Redstone and Boone as well and everything else, because it's been a pleasure talking to you, and it's been a pleasure watching your film too. I really dug it. I really did. And I can't wait for people to watch it. So congrats to you, and best of luck with your release of all your films.
I appreciate that, Matt, man. Thank you very much. It means a lot. Hope everybody is safe and everything in Australia. I think that's where you're from.
Well, yes, in Sydney, we're currently in the 3rd or 4th week in lockdown here in Sydney. So, which is kind of crazy. So, yeah, homeschooling right now as well, on top of everything else. So, I got 2 boys. I got an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. So I got homeschooling for both of them. So. But hopefully by the middle August, everything should slowly be coming in. Vaccinations are slowly rolling out. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how we go. And I hope everyone down in where you are as well in Texas is doing well as well. And hopefully things down there are getting better as well. And from all indications, things are getting better than where they were last year. So that's a good thing.
Yeah, it's getting there. It's still scary, but everybody needs to stay safe, and I think we're going to be okay. So.
Awesome. Well, Derek, again, thank you very much for your time. Everyone, check out Whitetail. Like I said, go to Whitetail Film on Instagram. Check out all the posts there, and also everything in regards to showings and screening times. And I'm sure it's going to be all the info there in regards to the entertainment release. Derek Presley, thank you very much for your time and congratulations for the movie.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.